which is a part of Collins Aerospace. So she will share her journey. Hello, ma'am. How are you? Can you hear
Yeah,
me loud?
yeah. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Uncle.
Yes, ma'am. How are you? How are you doing?
Yeah,
How?
good, good. Thank you. I hope you're all safe as well.
Yes, ma'am. We are very well here. So it is strange that whenever I used to come down to Bangalore, I used to visit you, and now we are talking on this webinar. This is the technology which is supporting such initiatives, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, I just wanted for our audience, I just wanted you to just go through about your journey in additive manufacturing, as you are one of the leading experience holder in additive manufacturing for a very long time in India. You are one of the pre-starters of the technology in India itself. So, ma'am, can you take us through your journey?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, glad to hear everybody's safe and well. And my warm greetings and wishes to everybody today on the festive occasion from all over India. And I'm pretty sure we will get through these times soon. And thanks for this initiative as well. I joined a couple of sessions during the earlier part of last week, and it was quite interesting. It's a good initiative. So I started basically, it was an organic start. I was working um, in materials technology development for repair and refurbishment of gas turbines. So it was not like additive. I started my journey in additive in 2011, 2010, 11, long before it became a buzzword. It was more from a necessity standpoint for processing of gas turbine, very, very difficult to process materials. So additive was a natural, unique choice. Only afterwards, in 2014-15 onwards, it started getting momentum all over the world. I'm talking of the global scenario. And I think in India, in
Yes, ma'am.
particular, from 2016-17, I think with all of yourselves, with several pioneers who took the risks to actually set up additive technology entrepreneurs, it awareness and momentum gained in India, maybe in the last 2.5 years, I would say. So I'll go back to where I started. Was a lot of the gas turbine hardware it is very, very difficult to get technologies for repair and refurbishment because they're so unique in terms of their performance. If you look at the hot gas path components, that we had to look for additive technologies as a natural solution and the only unique solution. So many a time I would say once we were able to take it through to completion and qualification, I would say that this is the only, at the moment, the only technology that will be able to satisfy the requirements of repair and refurbishment of difficult to manufacture or difficult to engineer materials, alloys, which are highly alloyed. So having said that, as you all know, in the aerospace industry and in the turbine industry, qualifications are very, very stringent, just like it is in the healthcare industry, especially for in vivo kind of applications of implants. So I saw the interesting polls in the last couple of occasions. I think it's a catch 22, and I'm going to switch a little bit and then come back to my own tryst with additive technologies. But why is it a catch 22? Because the right now the low volume area and the prototyping and the kind of novel low volume technology applications. We saw a few in the previous
Yes,
session
ma'am.
also by yourselves, and I've been attending Desktop Metals seminar series from yesterday. So I
Mm-hmm.
think they're all looking at low volume where the cost is, first of all, it is affordable because time is, translated into cost in all these applications. So when I go to the aerospace industry, I think cost is not such a premium, but the kind of quality, it has to be better than Six Sigma level. So it's a long lead time for qualification.
Yes,
Um, and you rightly, I think in the first webinar, you pointed out all the advantages, lightweighting, and easy to low volume, easy to manufacture. Where other multiple volume castings, you don't need a design, you don't need tooling, etc., etc. So why is it a catch 22? Because where it can be easily implemented. There's a long lead time for implementation because of the stringent requirements of reproducibility and repeatability and validation. Where it is easy to implement, in the sense where the qualifications are not stringent, in many other
Exactly.
sectors, low temperature applications, then the cost comes to be prohibitive, and it's also the volume. So I'll go back again to my own career and the question. So
Yes.
2011 to 12 to 13, we primarily were working with direct energy deposition technologies. And then in 2012, we started with experimenting with direct metal laser sintering or powder bed fusion, powder bed technology. So my first additive technology
Exposure.
sort of exposure or development, actual hands-on as well as developing a technology, was for a very, very difficult material. It is called a MRM 247.
Oh, okay.
All of you would have
Yes.
heard of it. So that is when I started with direct energy deposition. Then went into direct metal laser sintering, and then there's no looking back. In 2012, 13, 14, and so on. 2015 was the first idea that came to fruition, wherein in those years, 2013 to 17, I was lucky enough to actually be able to compare both technologies for
Mhm.
similar alloys, whatever
Okay.
was commercially available. And then later on, we were able to be one of the first to actually qualify a gas turbine part right from Bangalore, partnering together with Intech DMLS in 2015 and 16 to
Mhm.
be able to bring out parts which actually got qualified. All the very high temperature hot gas path component, very, very high temperatures. And then we were able to do that right from India. And then, it was not a bulk tens of lakhs of parts, but at least it's hundreds of parts. So it was the first milestone in that. And then after that, worked in parallel with both DED and DMLS. And then I think the key, my learning and being, the strong thing has to be in terms of looking, not today especially, because there's plenty of data available, and people
Yes, ma'am.
like you are also doing a great job in enablers of research and development by partnering with like-minded people as well as universities. So I think the message to people today, as opposed to what it took us about 9 months to actually develop and qualify a high temperature gas turbine part, today can be done in 2 or 2.5 months in
Okay.
terms of change of bill of materials from subtractive manufacturing to additive manufacturing, including all the 5 performance metrics, which is lightweighting, simplification of parts, design complexity, no inventory, reduced inventory, as well as performance. So if you take all these 5 metrics that is being talked about in whichever form of additive manufacturing, and I'm focusing mainly on metals here, from my own experience. I think in whichever sector it is easy to do that, quickly get the data out, and then of course qualification is a longer time frame. So
Yes.
in the last couple of years, except for this 2019-20, 2018-19, I had the opportunity to work not only in the aerospace sector, but also very closely with automotive, tool and die, and the healthcare sector, with trying to provide solutions for new alloys, new materials. That
Mhm.
was a focus. So
Exactly.
trying to develop powder manufacturers, trying to develop a procedure for quickly qualifying new powder manufacturers or new chemistries, and including different types of steels, different types of nickel-based alloys, cobalt alloys, titanium alloys, as well as aluminum alloys. So what I would say is, I think a very, very important message I'd like to give is, whatever can be shared, whatever can be obtained from the literature, from the open domain, should be leveraged. And then quick tests should be done by people who want to get into the field to accelerate their own learning, knowledge, and product development, because so much available today already, especially in the last 3 years, world over, there has really been a boom in terms of many people getting into it.
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Yes, Ankit. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the second thing will be like, how is Pratt and Whitney as an organization, as an aerospace company and aero engine manufacturer? is looking at a technology like additive manufacturing and trying to incorporate in supply chain itself. So how do you see that happening in the future?
Yeah, actually, my understanding of, in Pratt & Whitney additive manufacturing, the polymer base started almost 25 years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the very first few pioneers to actually put FDM machines and all the polymer related machines. And they've been using that extensively for all their tooling and the new design, new product, in terms of engine related development. Both Pratt & Whitney as well as I'm going to talk globally as United Technologies Corporation,
Yes,
which is everything else other than the engine in an aircraft.
ma'am.
So, all the lighting, the seating, the avionics, the evacuation slides, the life vests, everything, everything but the engine. And Pratt itself has been pioneers in new design and development. In fact, United Technologies Research Center, as well as Collins Aerospace, as well as Pratt Whitney has, I mean, every single type of machine that is available out there in the world there are machines out there, and very very high emphasis on additive manufacturing with a lot of funding and so on. And I
Yes.
think very recently there was a part that was qualified by FAA,
Oh, great.
Federal
Yes, ma'am.
Aviation Agency, yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
to actually go into an engine itself, an engine part itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's a huge emphasis, especially for new product development. For example, if the combustion design team wants a new uh, uh, swirler or kind of a new higher efficiency, higher performing combustor, I think the plenty of examples, really plenty of examples, looking at including multi materials, looking at commercially available materials, etc., both metals and polymers. And there is a huge training academy also. So, but having said that, we don't, not just in Pratt, I think uh, United Technologies Corporation as a whole, why is it that parts, they're using it for all the research and development purposes, enormous have been made in additive manufacturing across the company. And now it has become Raytheon Technologies, you must have heard.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Now
ma'am.
it's
Yes.
defense and aerospace. So there also, and I'm very, very happy to say in the last 3 weeks, I've seen plenty of messages from our leadership, from the head of Raytheon as well as head of Pratt, wherein they've contributed to making masks, to making ventilator, several parts, quickly used all their machines, put a hold on any other production, especially the polymer based machines. And they have contributed enormously to the, North America as well as Canada, both of them using all their additive machines to
Yes,
fight
ma'am.
this particular situation. So daily production is going on to help make these parts. But notwithstanding that, for the aerospace parts itself, there is a very, very long lead time for qualification,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the aerospace. So I see that is typically about 1 year at least, because you just
Exactly.
need to make sure man, machine, material, all the 6 M's, um,
Yes.
have to be satisfied. So the hope is that once that, but that part is, once it is qualified, of course it is going to be a huge, the supply chain is needed, because the machines in house will not be able to cater to that kind of productivity, because as you all know, additive is a relatively slower process. So definitely they're going to lean on the global supply chain, people
Mm-hmm.
like yourselves, to
Mm-hmm.
get qualified. But there is a, because military and commercial are together, the initial start is going to be, to strike the spark is going to be a little bit sluggish.
Exactly, ma'am. Ma'am, can you suggest, because a lot of viewers today and in our previous sessions have been students, and during like these tough times of coronavirus and something like a lockdown, how do you suggest, as you have been an academician yourself and you have been part of the industry, how do you recommend the new generation who are into designing or material research, how do you see them imparting, gaining more knowledge about the technology, getting more exposure to the technology itself? How do you see, and what will be your suggestion on to this?
Well, I think a lot of, I mean, you people are doing a great job in this initiative. Like this, I see practically I'm at least 2.5 hours a day. I'm attending some webinar or attending myself to see if, something new I can learn. So I think a lot of freewares also. If people have time and they are interested in this, I see a lot of WhatsApp groups and a lot of people are offering, free software
Yes,
for
ma'am.
during this lockdown time. Now that we've got it extended by another few weeks more, I
Yes.
think people should just, I mean, the best is the hands-on trials. Only then you'll know what are they like. You people are also shared in the previous meeting.
Yes.
What are the learning lessons learned from mistakes? You also highlighted some of the misconceptions. So I think it's best to use a lot of freeware, whichever aspect people are interested in. It could be materials related, it can be design related, it can be DFAM related. I think it can also be simple coding software, STL file. Take something. I'm just giving a random example. Take a bracket and see how they can do lightweighting themselves.
Yes,
Looking
ma'am.
at optimization software. I think every company at this, I see. I mean, I see the WhatsApp is flooded with everyone offering, rightly so, to keep
Mhm.
us all technically and mentally positive and engaged.
Yes, ma'am.
Tons of it. I'm just not having time even to screen through it to attend, because also we have to be focused. So I think students should really try, and then people are kind enough to offer free advice. So they should get in touch with you if they have any stumbling blocks, and
Exactly, ma'am.
do sort of a self-learning with the sort of base that you have created right now via this webinar series.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming and joining us at a very short notice. And thank you for imparting such a knowledge to our audience. If you have any further question for Deepa ma'am, you can post it in the Q&A. I will try to answer the questions after the whole webinar itself. So please, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for
We'll
having me over, and everybody stay safe and healthy. Yeah,
thank you, ma'am.
bye bye.
Same to you, ma'am. Thank you. Bye bye. Rahul?
Yes, I will take over now. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
So just a moment, I will share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So thanks everyone. That was a really insightful dialogue between Ankit and Deepa ma'am. You got to listen to a lot of advancement that has happened, her personal journey, where she has contributed in the industry from her material science R&D background. So there is a lot of scope for people to contribute, and of course there is a demand from industry. Because of that, you can see her knowledge being applied right from gas turbines and aerospace industry, tooling industry. So it is a diverse application that we had demonstrated. So now we are tackling the current challenges and demand of the industry. Deepa ma'am slightly touched upon those aspects, but I am leaving with you the visuals, and I need to quickly move forward today. So I will not stop at each slide for longer duration, because we have a couple of external panelists that will share their personal journeys and how their organization has been ramping up and adopting their technology. So our focus today is those sort of panel discussions. So please allow me to have a visual for those sort of discussions. So and we will immediately engage our panelists. So here are the main challenges faced by the additive manufacturing industry. We are compartmentalized that in 5 segments. So let's go one by one. First is technology being slow. So as Deepa ma'am was saying that although they qualify the components, they need a supply chain established. So they need to work with the production partners like us. So that's because of the process being slow. So how process can be improved, that speed can be improved, how those problems are being tackled, that Ankit will cover at the end of this webinar as well. But this is a persisting problem that speed can be improved for 3D printing process. Second one is about material qualification. So the choices of material, the way industry uses existing alloys with existing processes, we need to replace that effectively. So right now there are still narrow range of materials qualified, certain more need to be qualified, and Deepa might quickly touched upon this aspect as well. She developed one specific alloy grade for the gas turbine for high temperature applications and all. So then standard based challenges. So we need empirical data, and Deepa ma'am mentioned that there is a tremendous amount of data available that you can exploit, but still it has to be in organized fashion. So when you are talking about casting versus forging versus CNC machining, there are so many empirical data that you can refer to. Each tool tip manufacturer, whether to choose high speed steel versus the carbide tips, that sort of recommendation, and what should be the feed speed, depth of cut, that is very well aware with the CNC machining industry. So similarly in this segment as well, recommended parameter sets, how testing need to be done, what is the best quality that you can expect, and standardizing that in a empirical fashion. That organized efforts are ongoing, and you can contribute on that front as well. So industry-wide standard has to be there. Then the next is about quality. So consistency of quality for part per part in a same build as well as a subsequent build. So each production run batches need to have the consistency and repetitiveness. So that is something being tackled, but don't compare it just like standard exchange parts that you do with the CNC machining. It's just not the aspect of geometry, because we mentioned that printing, post printing, it is to be considered as a uh, investment casted type of component, and you have to do finishing, machining and all. But where the quality variation type of questions comes into picture is about material properties and how the strength is distributed amongst all the parts, and consistency in terms of strength and material behavior is what we are tackling, in a sense that that's a demand from industry, and quality based challenge is on that front. So next one is monetary challenges. So the cost wise, even though it makes sense for high value engineering type of aerospace applications, where it is a boon that you can do lightweighting and you can solve that industry problems, but rest of the industry like tooling and all, they struggle to justify the cost and returns on investments. So that's where dropping down the cost comes into picture. So right now the majority of raw feed cost is because of the specific properties, physical properties needed for powder to be in a specific uh, uh, size and uniformity. So that's the reason why. And process cost is another thing. So capital intensive machines and its depreciation and the runtime cost, process being slower. So that how it is getting tackled, we will share. And since there is a demand, so people say necessity is mother of all invention. So we will see first what are the necessities, what are the demands. So right now I'm just enlisting challenges, then I'm going to go into demands and how the demand will dictate the inventions and the new innovations that Ankit is going to cover. So next is a second poll. So could you just flash Sankha, then we'll register people's feedback on that. Sankha?
Yeah, so I'll be running the second poll. So I would request everyone to reply. The poll will be launching right now. So I would appreciate everyone to respond. So yes, you can see the poll on your screen right now. Please submit your answers so that you can move forward.
Thank you, Sankar. So I will move on because yeah, we need to give time for our external panelists. So let me move forward. So as I mentioned, irrespective of whichever the industry, people are asking for return on investments, fast delivery, cost effectiveness, and quality. That's a common theme irrespective of whichever technology. So let me go through those islands again. Uh, so demand forecasted, I can show some of the charts and spend a few minutes over here. So you can see, looking at the US market, overall science versus auto industry sector or healthcare sector, continuously you will see a growth, which is almost like exponential growth with a compound uh, annual growth rate factor in double digits. So that shows there is a pull from industry in all segments. And where India stands, that's the pie chart I am showing. So we need a lot of ground to cover. So you see around 38 to 40% is the market share in terms of all value creation, be it a machine manufacturing, powder manufacturing, end product development and use. They are leading the market, being a biggest economy, that's obvious. But how others are doing, we can take a look at it. So Japan, Germany, and China is sharing 10%, but biggest economy like India is not on that chart. So even the Eurozone sharing 4% each, combined Eurozone is accumulating 25% of the market share. And a smaller island like Taiwan is also claiming 2%, and India is not even 1%. So we need to do a better job, and there's a lot of potential to gain market share, uh, put ourselves in a value equation. So that's the uh, demand, I would say. And who are going to make those uh, capitalization of opportunity are the people. So we need to be smart, and these are the skills in demand. So people often pay attention to, oh, what makes you think say that our graphics hardware is out of date. So these sort of conversations are common, where people associate value to the just liabilities like graphics hardware or PC. Those are liabilities. Real assets are people. So we need to develop the skills amongst people, and this PPT will be shared. This page will be shared with you later, so you can take a look at it. What sort of multifaceted skill development is essential, uh, and the learning is not just students. This type of multifaceted thinking and developing our skills is essential for all industry players. So creativity, active listening, and adopting what is the best possibility, that's how you create value for your own organization. And problem solving is of course with the mental elasticity, so you need to learn continuously, and keeping tab of all types of manufacturing processes, learning about them and putting it in practice, and reinforcing that learning. That is something we covered as well, and this slide shows the similar approach. So what opportunity this uh, technology had been bringing? Deepa madam briefly touched about the current situation. In the case of pandemic, where supply chains are disturbed, everybody is staying at home, but still companies like Pratt and Whitney or other companies, they are quickly able to manufacture for local consumption certain high value life-saving items. It can be low value but now it is a high value, because something like a disposable uh, mask, nobody assigned a tremendous value to it. So in our industry, we everyday use and throw it, because we need to protect as a personal protective equipment. We need to use that in order to handle certain powders and all. But nowadays it has become talk of the hour, and companies are able to still meet the demand irrespective of disruption in supply chains. It is because of the use of technology. So they are using the novel flexible automation and direct digital manufacturing. Because of that, they can locally produce it. So that's a big enabler. And over here on the bottom right, you can see what are the plus or minuses of each technique. So conventional standard manufacturing, although you can make it centralized, one uh, plant which is assembling everything together to make a final outcome product, you have to ship it. So you might be wondering that, oh, something that is manufactured as a raw good at my hometown goes half a world around and then get again at my doorstep with a tremendous price hike. So that's what you see. The negatives are on inventory management, important the taxes and fares, shipping and transportation costs. So that's how the price keeps on growing. And advantage of additive manufacturing is, although just transformation cost is slightly higher than the conventional, you gain positive points in all these non-value added type of activity that is going on. So that's way you can do distributed manufacturing, and your designs can fly across the oceans using digital technologies, just like you are listening to me today. So infrastructure wise, if you are looking at centralized manufacturing, just simple like hand sanitizer, talk of the day. So you can see, in order to make it on a mass scale, you need a plant where it can be having a bottling capability for 400 bottles per minute or something, and then it has to be distributed and all. So instead of that, if a laboratory based locally, you can produce and you can make containers faster, cheaper, locally for local consumption. So that's the power of distributed manufacturing. Okay, so let me move. What are the big enabler that are going to transform the industry and where the cost can be reduced? So powder manufacturing has to occur in a local economy. Right now in India, we have to import certain special grade from overseas. So fast development of compositions is important, and there are different technologies. So best possible is the plasma rotating electrode technology, which gives the perfect spherical powder particles, and that's what desired by each technology. That is the best possible, but it can be overkill as well. Means for just a blown powder or direct energy deposition, uh, this type of quality is not essential, because this type of quality of spherical powder is essential in laser powder bed fusion technology, the one that we use, where you have to deposit uniform layer robustly, so the flowability and that aspect comes into picture. But for other technologies, you can use coarser sizes as well, and that sort of manufacturing in India has to occur. And if somebody is listening to this webinar from Tata or major player like Tata, Jindal, Ispat Steel, or someone of that sort, they should take note of it, that this is a huge demand, and foreign players are winning in this segment. They are establishing the capability, they are investing in this domain and making profit out of it. So there are few players in India, mostly the conventional old technology, powder metallurgy setup of metal injection molding. So there are few players in India, they can produce the powder metallurgy grades, but it has to go into volume converters like Tata Steel, Jindal Steel, Adani. Yeah, all those players can help this industry to adapt faster. So let me go to the return on investment. So I think it is quite self-evident so far that investments are flooding in terms of R&D, concept proving and adopting. Now swarm of machines are essential. So that's what, once the qualification phase is over, you need to convert on a faster basis and deliver the industry demand within time on budget. So who is going to make that? So in academia, when I was in college, then we used to listen that in certain seminars or webinars or futuristic talk that, oh, the factories of futures are going to happen, and this is a schematic. They used to paint a picture or just make a CAD model and have a rendering or illustrations. And this is the way industry is evolving. There is a industry 4.0 coming up, but it's now or never, believe me. So you see on the left the concept laser acquired by GE. So that's the factory floor where all the machines and subsidiaries, substations are installed. Similarly, EOS factory. And although they are just showcasing the swarm of machines, but how it is practically being used by certain industry. So you can see on the right, that's a GE setup. So they are utilizing additive manufacturing and conventional in a hybrid manner, so that it is cost effective and meeting the property and needs of the hour. And they are going full swing on these technology to adopt. And of course, there is a return on investment that they have realized, and it's now or never. So let's go to the third poll now. And then Ankit will pitch in for last segment of how these demands are tackled with the advancement in technologies. Okay.
Can you stop sharing?
Yes.
Yes.
So yes, I have launched the poll. I would request everyone to submit your answers. Uh, a panel will pop up. So you just click submit and the panel will close and you can get back to your presentation.
Ankit, we can see you.
So yes, so Rahul was explaining about the challenges, current challenges, and current mindset about the technology itself. So here I just wanted to talk to you about the new upcoming things. So that is very important because the technology is not multiplying just like Moore's law or something like that. It is not going 2 to power 3 so something like that. But it is not like PCB manufacturing technology or something like that. But it is increasing. The major thing has been like currently has been the good feedback it has been getting from the end users and the exact requirement from the users itself and service providers like us, the software manufacturer, the material manufacturer, and the machine manufacturer. All of them, we are working together in this, and we are trying to solve problems for our end users, like Deepa ma'am, as she was mentioning about something like this. So now I just wanted to talk to you about the new introductions, the advanced technologies, the talk about quick throughput and high uptime, which is very important for any kind of last slide of Rahul, ROI. So I want to talk to you about the polymer side initially. So currently, everyone in the Q&A itself, there were questions about what kind of level of end use component can be produced through the polymer additive manufacturing technologies. And right now, these are like 3 technologies which are quite exciting for Objectify. And so I just wanted to give you where Objectify is in thought of introducing some technologies like these. So FDR is a fine detail resolution. So in SLS technology itself, such fine details such as you get in DLP or in SLA can be done. So something like this is a new upcoming uh, technology. The properties and the finish will be as equivalent to injection molding itself. So EOS is also coming out with a laser probe fusion technology. So that technology has 1 million lasers on its recoater itself. So just because of having so many lasers, while having a pass over the layer, it will be melting. So it will be saving a lot of time of melting and recoating and melting again. So it will save a lot of time. And what EOS is claiming, you can make multiple of copies in matter of hours. So it is something which is a challenging thing for injection molding, and this is the future. So productivity, ROI, and good materials is the future on the polymer side itself, or any other technology also. So 3D Systems is also coming out with a figure 4 production line, which has a varied uh, talks about the materials and the applications of the materials. So here also they are trying to challenge the injection molding and certain technologies which are producing polymer grade production grade materials. So something like this is a good way forward in the technology side. So we are also on a lookout for them. Every 3 months or 6 months you get to know a new launch coming in. So it has been quite an exciting time to be in an industry which is increasing by 20 to 25% every year. So on the metal side, these are like some of the technologies which are quite exciting. As one of our speaker Deepa ma'am was talking about the DED, hybrid manufacturing technologies, and VAM are quite widely accepted technologies currently for blown powders. So they are exactly talking about how to use wire feed as for making larger components. So Boeing has come out with a thought that by 2030 they will be utilizing WAM as a technology for making the fuselage uh, of their aircraft itself. So something like this is the future, and right now not too much research has been done, as the equipment cost and implementation is quite expensive, and there's a huge learning curve. People should have certain background of welding and understanding about material itself. So it is a bit of a different requirement itself. Then comes the hybrid manufacturing technologies. So I can tell you, like during my undergrad, the gentleman who started hybrid manufacturing technologies, he was one of my tutor at Warwick, and he started this company where he can change the head of a normal CNC machine. So it can be a 3+1 or a 5-axis machine. You can just change the head and add a bit, AM bit, which can do AM, and in the same machine you can do subtraction and you can do inspection. So on the tool changer itself, you can have a AM head. So something like this has been widely utilized by companies like Mazak, DMG, and Beam. So it is something of the future, and it is very well taken in the repair stage of any of the components. So it is dependent on the new business ideas you have, and these are like some of the new technologies which are coming up. And already there have been certain users all across the globe who have been utilizing and trying to understand where they can utilize such technologies. So I can tell you, at MTC there was a manufacturing technology center at Coventry in UK. So there is a 20 kilowatt laser which melts and was repairing a submarine vessel itself. And they have been doing something like that for a very long time. But something like this for a country like India is something which we have to push forward, and we have to engage better with the government and better with the community itself. So these are like futuristic technologies, and which are the need of the hour itself. Then comes like the new technologies on the binder jetting. So as ma'am was telling about the desktop metal, so this is also one futuristic way of making components on desktop level, and it is something which will change the course of the uh, metal 3D printing itself. So these are like three companies who have already announced certain equipment. So one is HPL, one is Desktop Metal, and the third one is Metal X from Markforged. So they have been talking about these equipments from a very long time, and they have been getting good amount of traction from user industries and from academia. So when academia takes your technology really seriously, so it will be a serious player in the future. So academia is right now working with these technologies. And comes the talk of the 2019. So if somebody is asking for who's a rock star of 2019, who made a lot of noise and everything in the industry itself, it was Velo 3D. So currently they have partnered with Honeywell, and they claim that they can make components without support. So that is something to look out for, and something we also are keeping our eyes very close to it. So because if that is avoided, then the presentation what Rahul has done and I have done becomes redundant, and now things will be much more easier for all of us. So something like this is a move forward, and we are also on a lookout for something like this. So Velo 3D is something coming up, and we are keeping our close eyes onto something like this. uh, then we surely, like as you might have noticed, the major thing has been not just on the machine side, not just also on the material side. Mostly things still evolve around the software and the kind of things you utilize during the designing phase or a data preparation stage. So again, I'll say that same jargon again, is garbage in is garbage out. So as you, as well as you are designing, as well as you are simulating, you have to maintain that level of understanding of the component, you have to understand the application, you have to understand what kind of a material you're using. So that's why, like, you can see a cycle down below where we are trying to explain that from simulation to orient and support is the black art. So it is right now very well as a experience based approach, but it should be a very much scientific level approach. So software like Simifact, Atlas 3D, and Topology comes with certain solutions like this. And Topology is a very good software for generative designs and new age designing software. So the good part about Entopology is, like, it produces the drawings directly for a printer. You don't have to change the environment for again and again going from a step to STL or something like that. You can directly put it onto your machine itself. So something like this is a futuristic thing where you're mitigating as much failures as possible. So that is the move forward in the industry itself. So I would like to move forward. So earlier, Mr. Rajesh Khanna was supposed to attend our webinar, but due to his prior engagements, he has not been able to. He's not been able to be present at our webinar itself. So, Mr. I'll just give you a short brief of our journey with Mr. Rajesh Khanna and his organization TVS Motors. So, as I had told you in our third webinar about our transition from BS4 to BS6, TVS was also one of the basic enabler of that approach, and we were able to serve better. And it comes from a customer's perspective itself, how to implement a technology like this. So the confidence of the user, like Rajesh sir, has been a great help for a company like us in implementing the technology at an automotive level itself. So today with us, Mr. Anil Kumar from ISRO is present. So I just wanted to introduce you to Mr. Anil sir. Anil sir, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Anil sir?
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How are you, sir?
Yeah, good. Hi, Ankit.
Thank you for joining us, sir.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, actually, I consider it as an honor to be along with Dr. Deepa ma'am, whom I consider a veteran in this area.
Exactly.
So in that aspect, I'm an novice actually in this journey. Yeah, but still, okay. We have been working together along with you and other 3D printing industries in India.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And, yeah.
So, sir, can you take us to your journey in additive manufacturing, as how VSSC is placed, how ISRO is placed with additive manufacturing itself?
Yeah, okay. Coming to my journey, actually in AM, it started, I think, sometime way back in 2018. So I'm hardly 2 years into this field.
Yes,
and as you are aware, I'm from the other end of the supply chain. Actually, I'm the absorber of the technology.
Yes, sir.
So, or I can call it more like a bridge between the manufacturer and the end user.
Yes, sir.
And so on that front, I'll be acting as an interface between the designer, the end user, and the manufacturing team.
Yes, sir.
So it is definitely additive manufacturing is not like you place an order with some party and you get the part. It's not like that. So it needs to be a teamwork. See,
Yes,
like we need to get involved into the activity. We have to share the drawings with the party. We need to get involved, have a discussion with them, make them understand that what are the critical aspects of that part, or what is of most importance, or what are the other things we are looking for in this part, or why we are gone for this route.
Yes, sir. So,
So,
sir, anything
yeah.
specific you have learned in your journey of additive manufacturing for past 2.5, 3 years you have been involved in
Yeah,
this?
as I already mentioned, like we made a small beginning.
Yes, sir.
I can say we identified something like 25 different components which can be made through AM route. And
Yes, sir.
as earlier Dr. Deepa ma'am rightly mentioned, we need to print a few coupons, do the testing, and get a feel of the technology. So unless you do that, yeah, your understanding in that area will be limited. So
Yes, sir.
our main motive was to have an understanding of the metallurgy behind this with hands-on characterization of the parts or the coupons we print. And this will be a first step to convince our management, yes, this technology has something in it which we can take forward.
Yes, sir.
So on that front, we are trying to sow some seeds for Center of Excellence for additive manufacturing in VSSC or ISRO in the next, say, 5 years.
Yes, sir.
So on that aspect, again, we are also having a lot of webinars, at least on alternate days, to discuss what all we need to look for, what we need to bring into VSSC.
Yes, sir.
On that aspect, we have been discussing a lot. And I can say like it may be easier to induct some parts into satellite area, but it may not be so easy to induct parts into launch vehicle area in terms of the structural loads we encounter in launch vehicles or the failure modes what these components can undergo.
So, sir,
So we have been
on the material level, because as much as we have worked with the industry, we have seen ISRO being the premium place for at least materials. As we have seen through the webinar also, there have been people asking a lot of questions on the material front, and coming from the horse's mouth from ISRO itself, what should we talk about the additively manufactured materials and how confident we should be in implementing it into our designs, like in rocket launches or something like this?
Yeah, actually, like I mentioned earlier itself, like unless we have the understanding or have a hands-on experience of characterizing these parts, it will be very difficult to have confidence in like the technology for ourselves. Unless we who are the bridge between the end user and designer and the manufacturing party, unless we have the confidence, it is difficult to take this further. So
Yes,
we are trying to bridge that gap, and we are also trying to use different technologies like powder bed fusion, DED and EBAM, and make a few critical and complex parts, subject them to some structural testing. In fact, very recently we did structural testing of few brackets. We got it through you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we were trying to induct it into our newly being developed launch vehicle.
Yes, sir.
As of now, we are not into the DFAM aspects as such. DFAM, again, if you go into like topology optimization, weight saving, these are the real things which would give the fruits in terms of the versatility of this technology. As of now, we are not doing it, but in future, definitely we'll be looking into it so that we can take things forward.
So, sir, if taken ISRO as an prime mover of the technology, let's say in 5 years, so how do you see implementation of this technology within the organization?
Yeah, like I said, we are just trying to sow the seeds of this something called as Center of Excellence in additive manufacturing.
Yes, sir.
We are trying to ourselves establish a Center of Excellence. Like it is not like we are going to have all the facilities with us. We'll be making use of the facilities available in Indian industry, as well as maybe in some cases we need to go even to other parties abroad, like something like EBAM and all. As of now, nobody is having this technology within the country.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
We'll be trying to make use of all these technologies, make a few complex parts which even we ourselves did not envisage that it can be done, and do something like topology optimization, weight saving, and see that even our launch vehicles, we can get this advantage of weight saving, and also like next aspect would be the cost saving.
Yes, sir.
Because once you are able to make these near net shape components, definitely you will have the advantage of cost as well. So once this cost advantage is seen, even our management will be ready to support us in whatever way we would like to take forward this. So definitely in 5 years from now, we would see a lot of components flying in our launch vehicles.
So,
and also we would see ourselves as having a small Center of Excellence in additive.
Sure, sir.
With all the support of industries like you within India.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And sir, any advices for the students who are attending this webinar during this tough time of Corona?
Yeah, actually, that aspect already Deepa ma'am had covered. Like there are
Yes.
many freeware softwares available. In fact, even I have been trying to download a few softwares, feed an HTML file, and see what way supports can be generated or what is the best configuration, and even trying
Yes.
to see what way weight saving can be done through topology optimization. Yeah, you can just generate your own file, maybe simple geometry structures, generate an HTML file, feed that into these softwares and play around. And in that exercise, like you would also learn many things like, okay, why this should be done or why this should not be done. And in fact, I would say that all these 4 or 5 seminars which you have conducted in last 10 days
Yes, sir.
will also be very useful to sow some seeds in the minds of students and generate a lot of interest in this area. And
Yes,
also
sir.
this, since being this an emerging area of technology, like growth of this industry in India, I would predict like it would be exponential in next 5 years. So definitely there's a lot of opportunity around, and there will be many new players coming up with many facilities. So
Yes,
there's
sir.
a lot of requirement for designers, and they can do a lot of design modification or topology optimization and do a lot of value addition.
Yes, sir. So I'll just quickly ask you a question from my personal experience.
Yeah.
So actually in India, what I have seen personally is like people are much more thinking on the application front of the things, thinking on the commercial side of the things. Coming
Yeah.
from an organization like ISRO,
Yeah.
how much some decision on commercial matters more on technical, like what is the weight you take on commercial to technical level of understanding?
No. As I was saying, like once there is a weight saving,
Yes, sir.
see the amount of weight saving translates itself into like millions of dollars, because every in aerospace or in space sector, 1 kg of mass saving would lead to something like value addition of $10,000.
Oh, okay, sir.
So you should not be really looking at the cost of the part, comparing it with conventional manufacturing route. You
Yes,
should
sir.
look at the bigger picture.
Yes,
Like
sir.
every 1 kg you save by doing a topology optimization would translate into $10,000 saving. So you should look at that kind of picture, not the one-to-one cost comparison of a conventionally manufactured part and a AM part.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. And sir, how do you suggest people to understand much more on the material sides? So how is ISRO also developing that database for materials for themselves?
Yeah, materials database as such, see, we have been working on many of these alloy systems like aluminum, titanium, Inconel, and also 174PH, 316L, all these
Yes, sir.
alloys. So there is a lot of open literature available. And if you go through like available literature, there's plenty. In fact, literature dates back even to something like 17, 18 years down the line. So there's plenty
Sure.
of literature available. And definitely you can do a lot of benchmarking based on the available literature. And if you look at the standards, they have been evolving only in the last 5 years. Like ASTM
Yes, sir.
and
Yes, sir.
AMS,
Yes,
they have been bringing out standards only in the last 5 years. There's a subcommittee in ASTM F42 working on the bringing out the standards for AM.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Standards will be evolving in next 2 to 3 years for all these materials. Till that time, a benchmarking can be done with the published literature. And there again, you need to be very careful, the properties keep varying with all this by varying the parameters or doing a heat treatment or doing a HIP treatment. So you should be very careful about those aspects.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for being part of our webinar series. And
it's my pleasure. Yeah.
Yes, sir. It is our pleasure, and it is the level of actually, you must have heard in our previous session how much we had talked about ISRO as. So we are very proud of the organization itself, and we also look up to the organization like ISRO, and we are very much hopeful that you will in future guide us through the additive routes itself.
Yeah, in fact, in this is like a journey where we have to travel together. It's not like me teaching you or you teaching me. We have to travel together and understand all the things. Like we have been doing that, having discussions, trying to understand. Like we didn't have the know-how 2 years down the line, but
Yes, sir.
over a period of traveling with you, now even I can say that I know something about additive manufacturing.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you
so
for
it's
the
a
kind
journey
words,
together.
sir.
So all the best to you as well, and we also hope that we have many more fruitful discussions and
Projects.
many more projects together.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you for
Okay.
joining us, sir.
All the best. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So this was Mr. Anil sir from ISRO. So right now, poll number 4, which will be our last poll for the webinar series itself. So please, Sanka, can you put the poll?
Yes, so the poll is live. I would request everyone to kindly submit your answers. It should appear right now. So you can quickly go ahead and put up your options. Just to gauge which session you like the most.
So I think most of the questions have been answered, Sanka.
Yes, sir. Only 6 I can see in Q&A. Kindly right now stocked in. Other than that, the questions have been answered. The poll is currently running.
Okay.
128 people have already voted. Currently waiting for a couple of more. Then I will end the poll. Then I can show you the results of the poll as well. And we also have one more poll, sir, regarding the overall.
Yes, you can post that also after this. And
Sure.
please put as many questions as possible. If you have any questions for our guests also, you can post it. They will be able to answer it live. Sanka, can you share your screen for the poll results?
Just hold on a second. I'm just waiting for a couple of results. I will just compile them.
Okay. Rahul, do you want to take any of the questions?
Yes, I'm answering, by the way, on background, so I can answer some of them live.
Yes, please.
So can you share some freeware softwares for orientation and topology optimization software? So I think most of the softwares are paid one. The professional qualified softwares are paid one. But the good point of entry, there are certain desktop cheaper machines, and they come up with their own build processor engines. So one of the example is MakerBot. So MakerBot, they offer that freeware. Although you don't have the machine, you can download the software and play with it. You can load your part, take a look at how you can orient, take a look at how you can decide the process parameters. And that is the best way to learn the basics about orientation and that sort of aspects for design for 3D printing. Second thing is about topology optimization. I think most of the softwares in this domain are expensive and paid versions only. But just for the trial basis, you can run 2 or 3 example demo type of case studies using the uh, uh, limited duration downloads. So you can have a enterprise version software installed for 30 days or something, and during that period, 2 runs of that demo trial you can do, and that way you can learn something. That's one answer. So
Yes. Ma'am, Deepa ma'am, do you want to answer your questions? There were some audience members who wanted to have questions with you.
Yeah, sure. Would you like to read the question out, or
Yes,
should I scroll through it? Or
you can start reading through it. I'll just.
okay, I think you forwarded me a couple of questions.
Yes.
One is on what about the post-processing when you're using additive manufacturing method, like shrinkage mechanical properties of manufactured part when compared to subtractive method. Okay, that's a huge, I mean, it's like a 1-year effort in that question. But yes, whoever has asked that, we do need to, depending on the application. Supposing you want to use it, I think there was some example cited for a small consumer good, for example. Then obviously you're not so worried if it's a door handle or something like that. But if you're looking at the examples I gave for aerospace or what Mr. Anil Kumar gave for space, I think then we need to look at heat treatments as necessary. I don't know if things like residual stress was as addressed before, but that's a huge, one of the biggest challenges in powder bed fusion technology is residual stress management, not so much in electron beam technology. So definitely we have to look at dimensional tolerance, which you're talking with shrinkage. We have to look at macroscopic or microscopic defects and thereby mechanical properties. And moreover, I don't again know because I didn't attend the second in the series.
Yes.
But I don't know. Orientation is again a very big thing. Many of you know that. So it's not like in subtractive manufacturing, we are not so much worried. We get isotropic properties. Whereas in definitely in both direct energy deposition and in powder bed fusion, laser powder bed fusion. I saw somebody had asked a question, what is LPBF? It's just a nomenclature. You have to look at orientation effects also based on your application. But it's really not all that challenging or difficult. It's just that, you already have a baseline or a benchmark in your subtractive manufacturing. So I would say we are lucky that way because we have a benchmark. All we have to see is how much of deviation it is with respect to that with the post processing.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, do you want to take the second question?
Yeah, the question number 2 that you've sent is, do you think that machine learning based models to predict processing parameters is the way to go forward? The conventional design of experiments approach is lengthy and cumbersome. Again, depends on what alloy or what material you're talking about. If it is any of the, if it is for the processing parameter aspect, today for most commercial alloys that you have with any kind of machine, even if it's a new machine, I think it's a very short kickstart time. So Mr. Anil spoke, he said we are also going to use our in-house facilities as well as leverage outside. I also said the same thing. At least today in 2019-20, I think this is less of a problem in well-known materials. Now, if you want to do a niobium containing alloy, somebody in the space making a cryo engine may want an absolutely brand new alloy. Or if you want a completely new maraging steel, machine learning needs a lot of data, remember? Where will you get this data? So yes and no. So if in processing parameters, I'm not so sure machine learning is going to be effective because you need a lot of data to start with. However, if you want to use an optimization software for the actual part, because it's no longer SolidWorks and you need you need to see how to put the support structures, how to make conformal cooling holes so that it doesn't collapse, how do you get dimensional integrity, surface finish, then perhaps machine learning, because then you can avoid a large number of trials like you've rightly said. So it's not so much for predicting processing parameters. It is more for actually your part. I think answers, I think a lot of well-known people in the finite element world are already doing this in terms of topology optimization. There's also very good softwares, freewares that are available for trials. So I think topology optimization is what machine learning will help more than the process parameter aspect. At least I'm not a processing person, so please correct me if I'm wrong there.
Ma'am, do you think software like which reduces the DOE, like the design of experiment for developing a new alloy, will those be a bit helpful in the future for something like this?
Actually, we have to look at the ingenuity of those softwares. I'm still not able to understand from a material standpoint, unless you do first principle calculations,
Yes.
how will you be able to, first principle calculation, by that I mean in terms of solidification physics, in terms of looking at dendrite growth. People are doing that, research level, national labs. Oak Ridge National Labs has done a lot of that. For example, they can even use, I won't call it software. It is a very under word for that particular, what they are doing. But that is based on physics-based modeling approaches, where they can even predict not just porosity or defects in terms of macroscopic density, but they can predict how you can tune the laser power, scan speed, etc., hat spacing to go from a equiax to a columnar structure.
Exactly.
But I'm not able to personally, again, that is my personal experience and opinion, how you can use empirical softwares to, that is a little difficult for me to actually comprehend, Ankit.
Okay, okay, ma'am. Ma'am, one last question. One of the user, Mr. Abhishek Shrivastava, has. Can we maintain grain orientation aligned in one particular direction after heat treatment? So I think because you are
Yeah.
the materials person,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
just
see,
a small question.
again, yes, I saw that question, and I have one more that you've sent me. So I'll first answer this one.
Mhm.
So it's a very, it again depends on the alloy. So what grain orientation are we talking about? As I said, there is, for the powder bed fusion and the direct energy deposition, for many materials, like for example, Inconel 718, many of you will know that it is a well-known
Yes.
additive material. It has been tried and tested for a very long time now, at least 15 years now. So in a material like that, if I use a direct energy deposition, it is very, very difficult to get an equiaxed or a polycrystalline structure. Whereas with a laser powder bed fusion, given the kind of lasers we have, let's say up to about 400 watts. I'm not talking about the laser tech machines with one kilowatt and all that, but so grain, what kind of grain orientation? So there are two things we're talking about. One is anisotropy of mechanical properties along the build direction, transfers to the build direction at 45 degrees to the build direction, etc., etc. Partly because of residual stress that is built in the powder bed fusion. The other grain orientation we are talking about is having uniform thermal gradients to produce columnar structures, such as directionally solidified microstructure or single crystals, wherein you avoid, you only have preferential grain orientation. So I'm not sure which orientation he is referring to, but whichever it is, it depends on the the type of additive manufacturing technology that we're using. So for example, in a very crack prone alloy, you may need to do some extra heating of your mild steel build plate in order to even be able to get equiax structure. So I know it's, I may not have answered, but grain orientation is a very specific thing, depends on the technology, because it is to do with the way metals solidify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very specific. And if you tell about a specific alloy, then as I said, Inconel 718, whatever you do in the direct energy deposition, is very difficult not to get a columnar structure. Now, Inconel 718 is typically with the powder bed fusion technology or electron beam, completely different structures you get in terms of grain structures. So, and in any case, very few applications in the kind of industries that at least myself and Mr. Anil works, we are talking of low temperature applications, So if it is a high temperature application, then you have to do a post-processing heat treatment anyway. And that is usually in our kind of alloys, it is solution and aging. So sometimes during the solution heat treatment, you sort of destroy the as-built structure. So,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the last question which I have sent you through message. Can you take that?
Sure. So does, I presume it's dispersoid powder. I'm not able to see the spell. Yeah. Okay. Does dispersoid powder helpful to enhance the creep properties for high temperature aerospace applications? I'm not sure I understand this question. Whoever has asked, can you please translate it? What does dispersoid powder mean?
Actually, the same person was asking me about creep properties in high temperature aerospace applications, and something like on turbine level, how it can be utilized.
No, but what is this powder?
If we can answer from for just on
The high
creep
temperature
properties,
creep? Well,
yes.
again, it depends on, it depends on the material. So let's take Inconel 718 again. If you're
Mhm.
going to use a powder bed fusion and you're going to do an AMS 5564 or whatever specification, SAE specification you have for solution and aging heat treatment, and you're able to get a microstructure that's very similar to a rod structure
Mhm.
in an ostensibly casting. Remember, any type of additive, laser based or electron beam based additive manufacturing, you're layer by layer, you're casting and welding basically,
Yes.
except that you're doing it at such a high rate of the order of a million degrees per second or a lakh degrees per second that
Mhm.
you may tend to have non-equilibrium structures that can come up. So in terms of creep, again, it depends on the grain structure. Fortunately, material science and engineering allows you a three-way prong approach where you can tweak the heat treatment to actually change the structure, which in turn will affect the properties. So I'm not going to, I'm not going to be specific, but I'll give you one example. You can use the non-equilibrium structures to, and we've seen this in practical in a cobalt-based alloy. You can actually make use of additive manufacturing and judiciously use heat treatment with inputs from metallurgists, materials
Mhm.
engineers, and you can actually make it better than even a cast. But not, I mean, it's not going to be valid for every single alloy, obviously, but
Mhm.
there is the nice, beautiful window, and that is the message I would like to give, that you can get, sometimes you can get better mechanical properties, high temperature properties. You don't have to go by the run of the mill and say what is this, the as printed structure along the build direction transfers. This is a mechanical property. There is a beautiful window that it allows in some alloys to be able to manipulate the phase transformations and the
Mhm.
physical metallurgy to be able to give you better creep properties. So, I mean, it's a very
S-
generic question, but I
Yes,
can,
it depends. It depends on what are you looking for.
exactly.
All right. All right, ma'am. All right, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am, for
Thanks for
joining us.
having us. Yeah, very
And
good initiative, and I really appreciate you people rolling this out. Very
thank
professionally done. Thank you.
thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you, Anil sir. Actually, it has been my pleasure, personal pleasure, and Objectify's pleasure to host you. And Mr. Rajesh Khanna was not able to join us today, but yeah, like we work as a community, all of us, Deepa ma'am, Anil sir, Rajesh sir, I and my team. So we work like a community and we share a lot of information between ourselves. So that is where we come at. So I just messaged everyone late in the evening yesterday and everybody just showed up. It is such a commendable thing for all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to thank uh, Sankar Subra Deb for hosting the webinar, helping on the social media posting. I want to thank Nishant for helping out with the media partners. And also want to thank Sachin from Daily Cat Cam, who has been present at the webinar itself and who has been promoting the webinar with most of the community itself. And I would also greatly be thankful to Ashish Jacob and Rahul Pise, who have not been just the colleagues, but we have worked days and nights for the content to be prepared for you guys. And this was our first time, so might be some cases we might have gone wrong, or we might have not been able to, because of certain issues, not been able to answer your questions. So we will be happy to go forward from here. We might be coming back to you, as we have seen such a constant audience. So we have seen 250 plus audience ever since. So Deepa ma'am, do you want to answer a question right now?
By Gaurav Joshi. Sorry, I
Yes.
think you've ended it, so it's okay. But
No,
there's no,
Gaurav is here. Gaurav is here. You can answer.
yeah. I mean, there is no. I think it airworthiness certification. I believe takes. It depends on the part. If it's a rotating part, if it is a relatively cold component, that means compressor, shroud, casing, or if it's simply an aircraft part, not even an engine, then it could be much shorter. But what I would say is from start to finish, the certification process itself, if you've got all the data, all the data in hand, is about 6 months. But if you don't have the data and you have to go back and forth, it could be close to about a year.
Okay. So currently, how many engine components like blades or something have been qualified at all?
I am not so sure because none of the I know Rolls-Royce, GE, Siemens. I'm taking the
Siemens.
industrial gas turbine also.
Yes. Yes.
Pratt and Whitney, United Technologies. I mean, if you look at all the handful of MTU,
Mhm.
everybody. I mean, Safran. I'm just looking at the global people. It's all more like fuel nozzle. That's the kind of thing that is being
Most
talked about.
mostly static components they are comfortable
Yes,
with right
yes.
now.
I don't, at least I don't think any rotating part has been qualified.
Yes,
But
valves
please,
kind of.
you can look up the FAA website. If I have a link, I'll share it with you, Ankit. You can,
Yes.
but
Yes, ma'am.
all the participants can look up the FAA website. That gives, I've seen that keeps updating the list of additive parts that are being, that have been qualified by them. It is an open, the moment they qualify, they put it on their website.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone, for joining. And I can see it's 6:25, and still almost 150 people are there. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for such a wonderful and overwhelming response to our webinar series. Initially, when we started talking about it, we were expecting not more than 50 people to join us. But I think it was a good initiative during the testing times we are at. And I think we will come out of this testing efforts of our government and of our citizens, and let us work for this, and let us get moving over it. So Rahul, do you want to take something?
So the poll questions are remaining. So should I flash them on your screen? Quickly give your reviews.
Yes.
Can you see?
Yes, I can see.
You can give your reviews on
So
this here.
we conducted 4 polls today, and we were trying to understand what is something on 3D printing itself. What will be a primary beneficiary? So design and development is a basic point where people are trying to understand on the designing front, and so we are also very much uh, in sync with this idea, and we see. The designing fraternity, as said by Deepa ma'am and Anil sir also, that this is something which will be beneficiary in the future. So, and what are the biggest challenges of the technology? People are talking about the speed of the technology. Yes, the scalability will be the second thing. So yes, I think most of the answer what we were expecting, we have got in the whole of the webinar. So I think we are on the right pace with the thought process of the audience, or the audience is at the right pace of the industry itself. So that is a very good thing, that all of us are on the same page itself. So here also I asked a few of you guys, what is the important requirement for implementing AM in their or in industry perspective. So change in mindset and new business model have got the highest amount of polling this thing. So this is exactly what we have been talking about in our previous 5 webinars, and this has been really really pushing us also forward. Since I can tell you, like when we started, we were just explaining it to uh, our customers, our engagers and everyone, but slowly they used to come back after 6 months, 3 months, that can we do something like this. So that is where the change of mindset and finding out a business solution for yourself and implementing the technology comes into the picture. and this is the way forward for you guys. And the last poll what we did was trying to understand, which has been really exciting. So the last webinar itself for most of you guys have been really exciting, and that has been like the most important thing for us also as a closing note. And we tried inviting some people who have been attending our webinars constantly, and we wanted to showcase some of the industry perspective directly, not just give us our outlook, but to take industry level outlook itself. So Sankar, do you want to conclude on saying some things?
No, that's about it. Thank you so much, sir. Do you have anything to say, Rahul, sir?
I'm done as well. So I had answered most of the questions offline as well. So thanks for engagement all throughout 5 web series that we hosted, and we were really appreciative that it gave us certain intellectual for us as well in this break time, so that we can keep engaged and thinking and come up with the solutions and give the right answers for the curiosity, and build bridges so that we can network when industry opens up and provide you the solutions on live. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining in. I would like to again thank our sponsors, our associate partners, Tagma, and also Daily CAD-CAM for being our media partner, as well as our hosts. Thank you for participating. So yes, this will be the end of this series, and I hope soon we'll be coming up with new series and new webinars. Make sure to check your inboxes. Thank you everyone for joining in. We'll be sending you a feedback form where we will be asking a couple of questions regarding the webinar. Of course, since it is our first run, so we would like to know your opinions on the webinar as a whole. So I would request you all to please positively respond to that webinar, to that feedback form, and along with that, you will also receive the bundle which we have promised. So as soon as you receive the feedback form, you fill it up. By the end of it, you will receive the bundle.
Bundle of the bundle of the presentations, all of the presentations.
Yes, all the presentations, all the notes, the questions, and everything. We will try to sum it up as soon as possible and send it to you as soon as possible. So yeah. So yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much.
Yes. So stay safe, stay indoors, and take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Sir.